He sat there, day after day, in the same exact spot, beside a quiet roadside cafe where no one waited for him, and yet he waited. People came, people left. The seasons changed. Snow fell, flowers bloomed, but the dog never moved far. A loyal German shepherd, skinny, tired, soaked in rain, and burned by the summer sun. And every single morning, he lifted his head, looked around, hoping today would be the day, hoping the car that once took his family away would return. Most passers-by thought he was just a stray, but if you looked closely into his eyes, you'd see it, that tiny spark of hope, that quiet kind of heartbreak. For 4 years, he waited, until one cold morning a miracle happened, and nothing would ever be the same again. It was just an ordinary roadside cafe on the edge of a quiet town, nothing fancy. A dusty parking lot, a flickering neon sign that said, "Open 24 hours," and the scent of coffee and old oil drifting in the morning air. Behind the cafe, just off the gravel road, sat a small patch of grass and a crooked wooden bench. And it was there, right there, where the German shepherd made his home. He had no collar, no leash, no name tag, but he had something else, a presence. Locals began to call him Buddy. No one knew where he came from. He didn't bark. He didn't beg. He just waited. Zen, he waited. Heat, he waited. Snow, he curled up and kept waiting. He never wandered far, not even when other dogs passed by. He didn't chase cars or follow people. He stayed put, as if anchored to a memory. Some customers fed him scraps. A few kind souls even left blankets out. But he never left his post. And the strange part? Every time a certain type of car passed, a silver sedan, he would perk up, ears alert, eyes searching, like he recognized something no one else could see. At first, people thought he had wandered off from a nearby home. "He's probably just waiting for his owner to pick him up," one customer said, sipping coffee. But weeks passed, then months, and he was still there. The staff at the cafe named him Shep. It felt fitting for a dog who looked like he was always on duty. The regulars began to recognize him too. Some brought him breakfast sausage. Others simply nodded to him, as if acknowledging a fellow traveler who'd been stuck too long in one place. But there was something in his eyes that stopped people in their tracks. It wasn't hunger. It wasn't fear. It was hope. Quiet, patient hope. A retired man named Hank, who visited every morning, once said, "That dog ain't lost. He's waiting. Someone left him behind," and he never stopped believing they'd come back. Over time, even travelers began to take notice. Shep would lift his head when certain cars drove by, eyes full of anticipation. But every time the car turned out to be a stranger, he'd lower his head again and go right back to waiting. For years earlier, Shep wasn't stray. He had a home, a family, a little girl named Emma who tied ribbons on his collar and called him her shadow. He lived in a small house just a few towns away. His days were filled with play, laughter, warm meals, and soft beds. But one summer afternoon, something changed. The family was preparing to move. Boxes were stacked high, furniture loaded into a truck. Shep, confused by the commotion, was barking excitedly, running around as if trying to figure out what was going on. In the shuffle, a moment of panic struck. The front gate was left open, and Shep darted out, chasing after a bird or a distant sound. The family called and searched, but they were on a tight schedule. The moving truck had to leave. They left with the promise to return the next day and search again. But the next day turned into a week, and the week into months. And Shep? He never found his way home. Instead, he ended up near the roadside cafe, a place that smelled faintly of pancakes and coffee, but reminded him of the last stop he made with his family. And in his heart, he believed that if he just stayed right there, they'd come back. They had to. Not everyone saw Shep the same way. Some slowed down their cars just to watch him for a moment. They'd whisper things like, "Poor soul, he's still waiting." A few kind strangers brought him water bowls, leftovers, or even a warm coat during the bitter cold months. The cafe staff placed a small cardboard shelter behind the building, covered in plastic sheeting, so he had some protection from the elements. But sadly, not everyone had kindness in their hearts. Some kids threw rocks. Teenagers jeered and revved their engines to scare him. One man tried to shoo him away with a broom, calling him a nuisance and warning the cafe to get rid of that mutt before someone complains. Shep never reacted. He didn't growl, didn't bite, didn't bark. He just lowered his head and waited. Some people tried to adopt him. A few well-meaning rescuers attempted to coax him into a car. But Shep wouldn't go. He'd pull away gently, then walk right back to that same exact spot, as if to say, "Thank you, but I already have a family. They're just not here yet." And so the world kept turning, and Shep kept waiting, his heart full of loyalty that not even time could break. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. And still, Shep waited. Through blistering summers when the pavement burned hot beneath his paws. Through bone-chilling winters when frost clung to his fur and his breath turned to mist in the air. He never left his post. Every morning, as the sun rose over the hill, he'd sit up straight, ears perked, eyes scanning the road. Every evening, as headlights passed, he'd stand and watch. He didn't chase squirrels. He didn't bark at passing dogs. He didn't even sleep long. He simply watched. He remembered the sound of that engine, the color of the car. The last time he saw Emma, her tiny hand waving out the window as the car pulled away. And somehow, deep in his soul, Shep knew they hadn't forgotten him. That one day, one magical, impossible day, that car would return. Locals would shake their heads in disbelief. He's still here. They marveled at his faith, his patience. Some cried. Others brought their children just to see the loyal dog by the road. And while the world around him changed, new businesses opened, new people moved in, Shep never changed. His mission was simple. Wait. For her. For family. For love. It was just another morning. Fog hung low over the ground. The grass sparkled with dew. Birds chirped softly in the trees. Shep, now grayer around the muzzle and a little slower on his feet, rose from his usual spot near the cafe bench. He stretched, shook off the morning chill, and, as always, turned his eyes toward the road. Then he heard it, the low hum of tires on gravel. A silver car. It wasn't the first one he'd seen like it, but something about this one made him stand a little taller. The car slowed down. Shep's ears perked. It pulled into the cafe parking lot. The driver stepped out, a man, tall and thin, followed by a young woman. She was older now, but Shep's heart knew instantly. It was her, Emma. Her eyes locked on the dog sitting near the bench. She froze. "Mom," she whispered, "I think it's him." She stepped forward cautiously, not sure if this old, weathered dog could possibly be her childhood companion. "Shep," she called out gently. He didn't run. He didn't bark. He simply walked over slowly, eyes never leaving hers, and rested his head against her knee. Tears streamed down her face as she knelt beside him, hugging him tightly. "You waited for me," she sobbed. "You really waited." The cafe staff came out in disbelief. A few clapped. Others cried. One of them whispered he finally found his way home, or maybe home found him. It was the moment everyone had hoped for, but no one truly believed would ever come. A reunion 4 years in the making, sealed not by chance, but by the unwavering heart of a dog who refused to give up. Emma couldn't stop crying. Her parents stood nearby, stunned into silence. Her mother whispered, "I can't believe it's really him." The graying fur, the familiar eyes, the way he leaned into Emma's arms, it was unmistakable. "He waited," her father said, shaking his head. "All these years, he waited for us." Emma pulled out her phone, showing an old picture to the cafe owner. A little girl and a fluffy young Shep sitting in the yard. The staff gasped. "It's him," someone said. "He never gave up on you." They wrapped Shep in a warm blanket and gently helped him into the car. He didn't resist. For the first time in 4 years, Shep was going home. Emma sat beside him in the back seat, stroking his head gently. "You were always my best friend," she whispered. "I'm so sorry it took this long." Shep let out a soft sigh and rested his head on her lap, eyes closing peacefully. That afternoon, they pulled into the driveway of a house with a big yard, toys on the porch, and a soft bed waiting inside. He sniffed the air, his tail slowly wagging. The scent was new, but the feeling? The feeling was home. And when he stepped inside, it was like no time had passed. A bed, a bowl, a warm fire, and the sound of laughter. His family, his Emma. Finally, Shep was where he belonged. In a world where so much is fleeting, where people come and go, where loyalty is often tested, Shep stood for something pure. He didn't have a clock. He didn't know how long 4 years really was. But he knew one thing: love stays. His story isn't just about a dog waiting. It's about holding on to hope when everyone else tells you to let go. It's about believing in your heart that the people you love might just come back. And it's about how even the smallest acts, like returning to a place where a heart still waits, can change a life. We live fast. We move on quickly. We forget easily. But Shep didn't. He remembered. And because he remembered, a miracle happened. So the next time you pass by a lonely figure, a patient soul, or someone quietly waiting, maybe take a second look. Maybe there's a story there. A story of love, of loyalty, of homecoming. Because sometimes the most powerful stories don't happen in front of a crowd. They happen on the side of a quiet road, where someone, against all odds, still believes you'll return, just like Shep did. And sometimes that belief is all it takes to bring love back home. Months passed since Shep returned home. His days were now filled with warmth, slow walks in the yard, and the soft sound of Emma's voice reading beside him. He had a favorite spot by the window where he'd lie in the sun and watch birds flutter past. And though he was older now, moving slower and sleeping more, his eyes still sparkled every time Emma walked into the room. Locals from the town still visited now and then. They brought treats, shared stories, and called Shep the dog who never gave up. A small wooden sign was placed near the cafe bench where he once waited. Loyalty lives here. Shep had become more than a dog. He had become a symbol of what the world needs more of: patience, devotion, and unconditional love. And even long after his paws no longer walked this earth, his story continued to travel, touching hearts, reminding people that love, when it's real, always finds a way back. Always.